Hello and welcome to our makeshift studio in the library, and welcome to the first episode of Mattie Watches Movies, where I watch literally anything and everything and then I tell you about it. So obviously beware, there are spoilers for like a lot of the movies that I'm going to talk about, so be warned if you don't want spoilers. So obviously not everybody's a fan of horror. That's why the genre is kind of less taken serious than a lot of other ones. But you can't deny that that it is a big deal to a lot of people in the world of movies, and 2025 has been a big year for it. A decent amount of box office hits this year were horror. The top performing movies of the year were Sinners, The Conjuring: Last Rites, Weapons, and Final Destination: Bloodlines. One of the most successful years in profits and box office numbers for the genre ever. And it's odd to see that two of the highest grossing horror movies this year are not just sequels or remakes of popular franchises already, to actually brand new and independent franchises themselves. So I'm going to talk about some of the movies this year that I enjoyed and found intriguing, as well as one heavily anticipated release coming out in a few weeks now. So to begin, I want to break down the impact and success of Sinners, because it feels inevitable. It's like the biggest coup this year coming from horror. And according to Box Office Mojo, Sinners has come in so far as the 5th highest grossing movie of 2025 so far, which is groundbreaking. It was very influential and groundbreaking in a lot of ways because of its use of supernatural and horror themes to convey history of Black Americans during the Jim Crow era of lawmaking. In the movie, twin brothers Smoke and Stack return to their hometown in Mississippi in 1932 to open up a juke joint after having worked in the Chicago Mafia. But then their plan is inevitably disrupted on opening night when a supernatural force in the form of 3 vampires shows up and threatens their community, ultimately attacking people, killing some of them, and ultimately turning Stack into a vampire himself. Though his brother Smoke does not kill him when he gets the chance, as long as he doesn't kill their cousin Sammy. Stack being turned represents a lot of cultural assimilation and a loss of individual freedom, as well as a lot of other symbolistic meanings in that. And it was really just groundbreaking in a lot of ways. The music and the themes and just the aesthetic of the movie really drew people in, and having really well-known actors like Michael B. Jordan play movies like this really help them soar. I personally love vampire movies and anything vampire, so the use of vampirism in very highly symbolistic ways in this movie is really cool and really unique. And important elements of history is really cool to be conveyed through themes like this, and I think that it should continue because it has proven to be very successful. Okay, next we have Bring Her Back and Weapons. I wanted to compare both of these ones. Bring Her Back is an Australian film that came out in the US back in early summer, I think around June or end of May. The movie is a shocking movie, very much so, about grief and a mother wishing to reverse the death of her daughter by any means possible. The movie is about 2 siblings named Andy and Piper. When their father passes away, they are sent to live in a new foster home with their foster mother Laura and her nephew Oliver, who doesn't speak and is kind of odd. And then Andy is immediately put off by this, and by Laura, he doesn't like any of it. But Piper kind of goes with it at first because of how nice Laura is to her, and kind of doesn't listen to Andy. But using a method of resurrection, it is learned that Laura is very sinister actually. Through these VHS tapes that she has, she sees an occult group performing this ritual. She wants to transfer her dead daughter's spirit into Piper, and so she can resurrect her in that way, and Oliver is also a means of doing that as well. And Oliver ends up being a kidnapped boy, not her nephew at all. I found it really unique and interesting and definitely gross in a lot of ways, so if you do not like gore and gross stuff, don't watch it. But then Weapons came out a little bit later in August and definitely has been bigger in like its impact than Bring Her Back, I think, because it was a hit with all kinds of audiences, not just horror fans. It was, again, one of the more higher grossing movies of the years, which is not uncommon for horror, but was kind of unprecedented for what it was. This movie was also a possession film. It's about children who mysteriously vanish on the same night at the exact same time, and the whole community is questioning what happened, and a lot of the blame is placed on their teacher, even though there was one young boy in the class who did not. He was the only one that didn't. And it's kind of about finding out what actually happened and reverting the blame from the teacher back to that little boy and his family and what happened there. I thought there were a lot of similarities between them. Definitely a lot of people who saw weapons and didn't see Bring Her Back. So I thought it was a good idea to kind of compare and contrast them. The similarities that I saw myself were the older woman kind of playing a mysterious role in it, kind of odd and off-putting woman, like the woman in Weapons, who is, I think she tries to say that she is the little boy's like aunt or something who she's taking care of, and they're engaging in rituals, possessing children, and using supernatural and occult elements to get what they want. And then because I saw these similarities, I wanted to see if other people did, so I looked some up, and I found on Reddit, bear with me, a lot of people on Reddit are not very credible, and yeah. But on r/movies, Reddit user Starfox Freshman said that they saw these similarities too, and some of them being both are highly anticipated 2025 follow-up projects from young writer-directors, respectively Zach Krieger for Weapons and the Filippo brothers for Bring Her Back, who had breakout debuts in their respective movies of Barbarian and Talk to Me a couple years back, both released in 2022. And they followed their predecessors' naming conventions. The Kriegers named their movie with both an enigmatic noun, Weapon, and Barbarian, and the Filippo brothers' movies are both imperative sentences with a U understood subject, verb, and object structure with Bring Her Back and Talk to Me. Both are new stories, but are often considered to be expanded or intensified forms that are built on their first film's strengths. Krieger draws suspense out of the ambiguity of ordinary experiences, dark open doors, basements, suspecting a stranger, while the Filippo's scare comes from humans brushing up against a brutal paranormal world and interacting with a world we don't understand ourselves. And he says that he's heard people say their second movie is kind of like their first, but more. And then these are relatively superficial, he says, but are plot-related comparisons. There's a messed up lady who uses magic to cheat death in both of them, and the magic messes with the kids specifically. And the central drama is from the woman trying to conceal her rituals from the outside world and the other characters in the movie. And in both movies, there's a scene where authorities visit their house, prompting a whole house cleanup scene. The woman kills someone conducting a wellness check, and the woman ultimately loses control of the children, leading to her own undoing. And both have allegorical undertones of child abuse. Now, I thought that these similarities were enough to draw just interest. I thought they were both very good respectively. I saw them both, happens to be alone in theaters, and I thought they were both good. And I would definitely recommend Bring Her Back to people who liked Weapons but didn't necessarily see Bring Her Back. And if you didn't see Weapons, then you should definitely see it too. Now, there are a lot of people replying in the comments who are saying this is not significant at all and that it's mental gymnastics to compare them, but I don't know. That's just people on Reddit being people on Reddit. So, I don't know. I thought it was interesting and I thought it was worth to bring up. But now I want to move on to vintage or classic horror movie vibes in specific movies such as Wolfman, Hard Eyes, The Monkey, Fear Street Prom Queen, and Clown in a Cornfield. I'm going to specifically talk about The Monkey and Wolfman briefly. And often modern horror movies like to bring up classic elements or rehash old classic horror movies in their both in theme and elements of the movie as odes to these classics that have shaped the horror genre as a whole. Specifically Wolfman. Wolfman released all the way back in January of this year and was a reimagination of the 1941 Universal Monsters classic of The Wolfman, obviously. It honors that old movie in a use of practical effects as opposed to computer-generated effects and such elements. And I wanted to bring this up because I, for one, love practical effects and think they are really cool and should be done more today. I watch any old movie that uses practical effects, it's usually my favorite part. And it shows a certain artistry and passion put into a project that I feel that even if it looks cheesy and fake, is just more charming because you know somebody put the time and effort to make said prop, makeup, costume, anything like that. Notable ones that use practical effects a lot are The Thing. That's a very famous example of it. All of the effects in that movie are done practically, and I think that's so awesome. And yeah, even though the movie itself was kind of a mid, but I thought the practical effects were cool. And then to talk about The Monkey briefly, it was originally a short by Stephen King published in 1980, with the movie adaptation releasing in February of this year. And it's about twin brothers who discover a wind-up toy monkey that causes mysterious deaths to occur in their family when they turn the key on the back of the monkey. Some of the main complaints about it was the derivations from the short story that were made in the movie. The plot wasn't necessarily the same as the short story, and I thought it was still kind of like fun and like goofy. If you like less serious tones in horror movies, then I would watch it. But how I felt is it would benefit if the movie was actually made in the 80s when the story was written, because it's a very 80s story. It's Stephen King, obviously, and if like the practical effects and such as that, because I'm very biased towards them, were used, then it would be more fun. And it was kind of strange because it was directed by Longlegs director Osgood Perkins, who's known for his cinematography that he uses atmosphere and slow burn suspense-driven horror in his movies. And you know, obviously it's a very different movie than Longlegs, which I loved. So it was kind of strange in that way, but I think it's definitely worth a watch if that's your kind of thing. Next I will talk about him briefly, very briefly. I personally am a football fan and a horror fan, so I thought it was a good idea, but the execution of it was kind of mediocre. I specifically wanted to talk about how I think its main issue wasn't the movie itself. Like, being a mid-horror movie isn't a crime. There's tons of them, but it was heavily marketed through Jordan Peele's involvement in the movie, and that kind of created a sense of false expectations for it. And there's no shame in making a mediocre movie, but you have to expect people will judge it based on the standards that they have of other Peele films if you tell them about Peele's involvement. It's no Get Out, Us, or Nope. It's not really similar to any of those movies either, because he didn't direct the movie, obviously. He only produced it, so... I thought some of the fun parts of it were the symbolism. I liked how the GOAT, greatest of all time in football, was used to be like, GOAT equals Satan, in the Satanism in the movie, and the rituals and the sacrifices that they make in that, so I thought that was like a fun element. Again, if you like horror and you like football, go ahead and watch it, but if you don't really care about football, I don't know, I'd sit it out probably. And then lastly, I wanted to talk about one heavily anticipated movie releasing just in a few weeks now at the end of this year, Five Nights at Freddy's 2. And I feel that the main question in everybody's mind is, will it be scarier than the first one? The first movie fell short of a lot of people's expectations because it wasn't as gruesome as some people were maybe expecting, with little to no jump scares, which is odd for a movie based on a jump scare video game. And it's less like it doesn't need to be super gory, it just like wasn't scary, there wasn't any jump scares, and that's what people are expecting for Five Nights at Freddy's. This is most likely due to the fact that it's PG-13 rated and had a widely young viewer base because a lot of children like Five Nights at Freddy's. A lot of young children grew up with that, and children now like it, so they just probably decided to make it PG-13 to appeal more to them. But what will change about it is the question. It's still rated PG-13, and doesn't seem like they're gonna be making it scarier, but I still have hopes for it. Because PG-13 horror doesn't necessarily mean bad horror. There are plenty of horror movies with PG-13 ratings that are great and relatively scary, and that are very successful and people like them. Though it does arguably limit the capabilities of the genre in the capacity of like gore and super scary elements, because if something is regarded as like extra scary, it's probably going to be rated R. And for a story like FNAF, which is a very gruesome storyline at its core, about, you know, like kidnapping and killing children, and some of like the descriptions used, many people, including myself, wanted the movie plot to match more of the story, whether it's gruesome or not. And the story itself of the movie, which, if it's not scary, it's not scary. But the main thing is the plot of the movie, I think, was more derived from the FNAF books, which are exclusively written for children, and doesn't really necessarily match the lore already fully fleshed out in the video game itself. Which people love the lore of the video game. That's one of the main draws of Five Nights at Freddy's, is the story is good, it's interesting, it's shocking, it's sad. And they didn't really go with that in the first movie. And obviously it looks like the second one is just obviously just going to be a continuation of the plot from the first one. They can't necessarily throw out the plot that they fully made in the first one. But I guess most people are just expecting more from it outside of that, if that's where they're going with it. Okay, that's all that I have for today. Thank you for watching Mattie Watches Movies. We are signing out here from Ganal Global Studios.